What's going on, folks? Back here late night trying to get this video done for you guys. Here it is, the newest addition to the bass arsenal, affectionately named Ruby for pretty obvious reasons, but I'm going to get right to playing the bass, and then we can talk more about the details and everything like that after I'm done. But I just want people that are here to kind of hear it, that maybe didn't see the Instagram teaser or anything like that, can hear it, and if they want to stick around they can, and if not, they got what they wanted. So both pickups on, preamp the way I like to set it, and this is going to kind of basically be the giveaway about the direction I took this bass in. So yeah, that thing. Here's just the bridge pickup. I'm going to darken it up a little bit. You know, it's late. My hands aren't cooperating, so I apologize for that. But it's that really percussive Jocko thing, you know, or if you want to do the chords. You know, that's usually what I'm doing if I'm on the bridge pickup. But if you want to do that really mid-heavy, that's perfect for that. Want to get the more like the dirty funk, you know, go to the neck pickup. You know, that thing, Stanley Clark kind of thing. Does it great. So that's what this bass sounds like, man. I mean, obviously my preferred tone is that's really the main direction that I wanted this bass to nail, and I think we did that with flying colors and then some. So this is a MTD Beast. This is pre-Saratoga era, so these are kind of the models that eventually turned into the Saratoga model basses. They were handcrafted in the Czech Republic. Not sure if there's a purposeful difference in being handcrafted and handmade, but that's what these are. They're handcrafted in the Czech Republic. Carved poplar body, from what I can find. I've seen some people that say it's alder bodies on some, but I think this is carved poplar. I hope it's carved poplar, because I remember in the earlier days when I was first getting into the MTDs and stuff like that, Mike talking about a lot of the players that I looked up to using poplar bodies and where that kind of snappy, poppy tone came from. Also, my Epiphany PS410 cab is made out of Italian poplar, so that's kind of cool. So if it's poplar body, it'd be sweet, because I never owned a poplar bass before, but it sounds amazing, whatever it is. These basses were still 35-inch scale. When the Saratogas came out, they, at least in the Kingston line, I can't remember on the Americans, but they went back to 34-inch scale to kind of stay true to that more traditional J bass scaling sound for those guys that were more the hardcore. They were MTD guys but wanted a J bass option. But this retained 35-inch scale, which I actually like because I tune ADGCF. So having that extra scale being down tuned a whole step really helps keep the clarity of the notes and the poppiness of the notes and the tension on the strings. So I actually like that it stayed 35-inch scale. Still the asymmetrical neck, which Mike has been known for years. 0 fret. All the typical MTD stuff. Now, when this was out, it was the Grendel was the active model, which most people know that one. Which even those are super rare to come up on the market anymore. But this was the passive model, the Beast, which most people, if they have it, don't know what it is and try and sell it as a Saratoga, because there's nothing on the headstock. It just says MTD. And even some of the earlier Saratogas were the same way. They said nothing on the headstock, but they changed to Saratogas, I think, when the production moved to Korea. So I've seen this. I actually seen one very, very similar to this exact one in a Guitar Center, and they were trying to sell it off as some other MTD, and I called them up, and I had to kind of like educate them. I'm like, no, it's this, it's this. But anyway, because that was, I was trying to buy that one, and ended up with this one. That's a long story that we don't need to bore you with, but the stock pickups on the Grendel and the Beast were the same. The Grendel had a I think it was a 3-knob stacked thing on it with a mid switch, and a Hipshot B style bridge, where these have the Hipshot Vintage Style, but this is pre-quick release, so the strings have to be pulled out through the bridge, which isn't a huge deal because I can't remember the last time I broke a string. Knock on wood. But I usually I clip the ends of the strings when I'm changing anyway, so I don't have to worry about getting that winding through. It just slides right out. But so these are the bridges that are actually used on the Saratoga, the American Saratogas now, and the B-Shot bridges are what Mike uses on like the 3.5 series, the other MTDs, American MTDs. So that was the main difference between the Grendel and the Beast, was active versus passive and the bridge style. Everything else was the same. The pickups in here, like I said, sounded incredible. And there might be people that actually know what these basses are, have a Grendel, that are cringing that I took the stock pickups out, because those are actually Bartolini designed, like early single coils that Bartolini designed. But the reason why I had to take them out is because they were true single coils. And they just, outside of a quiet studio environment, were too noisy. Like, obviously I couldn't solo any of the pickups, but even with both pickups on, hum canceling, sometimes just too much noise is creeping in. So I painstakingly and carefully, because I loved the sound of the stock pickups, they were right in the traditional vein of the bass that this is obviously a nod to, and the tone I was going for. So what ended up in here is the Bartolini Brights. This is what most people call them, but the part number is 59 CBJD S3 and L3, because this has a short neck and a long bridge, the more traditional sizing. I took pictures of this before NAMM and posted about it, and that was great, being able to go to NAMM and actually talk to the guys and really work it out, because we narrowed it down to two pairs of pickups that I tried, and it was a super easy choice. For the tone that I was going for. Both sets of pickups were great, but this was just the tone palette that I was after, the more household, classic, traditional, like when people hear people like me, when they want to hear a J bass, this is the tone they want to hear. And I also put an active preamp in here, which this is my TCT 5.4. It's just basically a re-release of the Burbank Tobias TCT circuit that Mike used in his pre-Gibson Burbank era Tobias basses. So basically the short version is I wanted a meat and potatoes bass, but in the direction of like the Marcus Miller meat and potatoes, the spanky 70s J thing. That's what I was after. That's the tone I wanted this bass to nail, and then everything else was why I put an active preamp in here, so that I had versatility to be able to do other things with it. And I really think that we... I mean, again, I'm cautious in calling this my Marcus bass, because I'm not saying it's like it's nailed his tone, but it nailed that tone palette of 70s J bass that I was after. I don't have his hands. Obviously, he plays a different kind of bass. I don't use the same kind of strings or even the same gauges he uses. So I'm not saying I sound like him, but it's just I wanted that spanky 70s J bass thing, and this, we nailed it. Like, I couldn't be happier with this. One of the things about the Bartolini Brights that I was actually worried about, having never used them or played them before, is that because they're wound to be bright, I didn't want to lose that fundamental, I call it the booty, but that bottom. And the thing about the way Bartolini does stuff, which is great, is that most of their pickups in their descriptions are described as having strong lows and low mids, and then as you go through the different series, there's different levels of like treble enhancement. And so these pickups still have that strong low and low mid emphasis. They're just wound to make sure that treble right off the bat is shining through. You're not having to like boost a bunch of treble to get it to sparkle like that. So even though these pickups are nice and spanky, it's still that open, it's an open D for me. Bass all day long. And I'm sure the TCT, it's like a perfect marriage because I've got really bright pickups with what's usually known as being a really bass heavy, warmer preamp. So it's almost like this perfect complement. And the thing about the TCT is that the sound that made Marcus popular in that 70s bass of his that Sadowski did all that work on with the crazy pick covering and that's a TCT preamp in there. A lot of people don't know that, or the rumor is it was like a prototype of a Sadowski preamp or these other stuff. It was a TCT. Not the same configuration. It was a 2-band with an internal mid trim pot. But it was a TCT. That was part of his sound. And so a lot of people, when they think of a J bass, MTD is not the bass that pops in their head. When they think of MTD, they think of the other American, the 535 style. And I think part of that reason is that the die-hard brand X fans, I'm not going to say the name, most of them are in that more traditional household brand X sound. And the NTMB that normally because the Bartolini Brights is what usually comes in the Saratogas, I believe, or you can get the B-Axis if you want, but I think Bartolini Brights is what they usually use. But it's coupled with Bartolini's NTMB preamp, which is a phenomenal preamp. This is not that one's not good and this one's better. It has nothing to do with that, but they're built and affect the tone differently purposefully because they're just different palettes. That's the whole point. It's a taste and a palette. And even for me, I used the NTMB for a really long time, like super long time. But for someone like me, and I think for the people that maybe don't think about MTD for a J bass, we like the Marcus TCT thing, and they sound very different. You know, you can do things to the NTMB to like mimic a TCT, but it just, especially the way the mids work on a TCT, that's like the bread and butter money machine for me. Why I like the TCT, which if you watch my second video I made for that, I explain how that all works and everything, which I can link to that in the description if you want to watch it. But if the TCT thing is what you like, you got to have a TCT preamp because nothing else works or sounds like it. It's just, if that's what the sound your ears like, and that's why I'm playing an MTD bass, 35-inch scale. Like, nothing about this is like the way the bass I'm trying to make this sound like. There's no building similarities. Like, the body wood is poplar. It's not like ash or alder. You know, it's got a 0 fret. It's not just an open nut. It's not 34-inch scale. You know, it's like, but to me, it's because what is in here, this is the right tone palette for what I'm after. And the TCT, it's got that thing. Like, I don't, it just, so another motive behind this bass was to change people's minds, or maybe to bring awareness to the fact that MTD makes a phenomenal jazz nod to a jazz bass. You know, you get the playability of the way Mike builds his instruments with the carve of the neck, the 0 fret, which means insanely low action. I mean, I don't even know if you'll be able to see, but like, so there's the string, and now it's touching the fret. you're like barely seeing my finger move, and that's the space between the strings. But you still maintain, you still got that clarity there. I mean, if you want me to do like a four note chord, walk it up, you know, maybe even a more open voicing, something like that, you know. I mean, a lot of times with low action, you lose, things get kind of warbly and almost like blanketed up top, but you know, with the way the 0 fret and the frets have to be leveled for a 0 fret to work properly, like this action is really like for slap. You got the guys that this is their slap motion. You got the guys, most guys that have done the doorknob, what they call turning the doorknob. But because this action is so responsive, even though it's so low, you know, if you look, my hand is like anchoring the strings to kind of create that mute, because I'm not wanting the string to ring. And I'm like wagging my tail with my thumb. It's more of a this and not even a this, because the action is just so responsive on this thing. So trying to ramp that into, if this was the sound I was after, why didn't I just buy that signature bass from brand X or brand Y? Well, because neither of those brands offer an asymmetrical neck. Neither of those brands are 35-inch scale. Neither of those brands are 19mm spacing. Neither of those brands, I mean, in my opinion, I mean, I'm sure there's guys that have gotten their action low and everything like that, but I just, the playability, I did not want to lose the playability of playing an MTD. Like, that is like the whole part behind playing one of these instruments is the playability for me. So we take the shell and the platform, and I put the palette that I like in here, and the instrument responds to it, because that's the thing I love about Mike's approach to making instruments is it's first an acoustic instrument for Mike. It always starts as an acoustic instrument. So if it doesn't play or sound right acoustically, plugging it in, amplifying it is just making a sound you don't like louder. So that's the thing about these instruments is they respond so much to stuff like this, which is why if I took this TCT preamp out and put the same NTMB that normally comes on like the American Saratogas, this bass would sound completely different. I mean, like completely different. You could YouTube any Saratoga video, and you'll hear how different that preamp sounds. And it's not a bad thing. It's a different thing. I'm more after the more familiar J bass that people kind of got accustomed to in like the 80s and 90s, the heyday of R&B and slap and funk. That's just what I was after, and the TCT was a huge part of that. I mean, also the guys that I grew up mimicking and learning from, like Terrence Palmer, Andrew Goucher, you know, they were playing these pre-Gibson Tobiases, which also had TCTs in them. So that TCT sound is just a sound that's gotten ingrained in my ear, and it's home, and I know what to do with it. So anyway, going into rambling, we're almost in 20 minutes, but that's why I played at the beginning. That's the motivation behind this instrument. I wanted it to nail the 70s spanky J thing and sound very much in the ballpark of a certain brand that I'm still not going to say. But I think it's pretty obvious. But even with the clover tuners, the ultralight clover tuners that I put on here, some clients hear with their eyes. It's sometimes difficult to handle when that happens, but what I mean by that is some clients, if the instrument doesn't look like the instrument they want to see, it's never going to sound right. No matter, even if it's like if you had a tone print and you MIDI'd in and you were MIDI playing a certain bass, because it doesn't look, or it's not similar to that feel, they're never going to be happy. And so this is a meat and potatoes bass. A slap machine was also, it's a more plain flat solid paint job, clover tuners, you've got the J pickups for those clients. You've always got to have like that bass for those clients. So that was another thing behind this to hopefully come to a compromise of like, look, it's got the vibe you're talking about. The only thing it doesn't have is a pick guard. But there's even those, a lot of those companies have gotten away from pick guards on certain models, and so front of house guys love this thing. They absolutely love this thing because our ears are funny. This bass actually, and Mike has talked about this in some of his videos, this bass actually has a, narrow is not the right word, a more focused sound. And because of that, it sits in a very defined, specific frequency pocket in a mix. So in a live situation, especially in a lot of stuff that I play where there's 2, 3 guitars, all of them have like so much delay and verb and octave pedals, and the layer is just so thick. I'm one bass against 2 or 3 guitars that are doubling their layers over and over again. So that means that the pocket I have to sit in gets smaller and smaller and smaller in a live context. And so a bass like this, which is a focused sound, actually sounds bigger because it sits in that pocket and it owns that pocket. Like nothing else is covering up this instrument in that frequency range. Like it's a steak knife, man. So front of house guys, it makes their life super easy. Granted, it may not be as expressive or have as much individuality as, you know, like these guys and the 535s that have more of a larger dynamic range and a bigger sound. But for certain gigs, you know, you need that meat and potatoes, man. Especially in live venues that might be a problem. They don't have good equipment or the room is just bad. I mean, one of the things about having an active preamp like this that is really helpful is that all my gear is modular. So I've got a studio channel strip, then I've got a separate DBX compressor that it's piped in post gain through the compressor, and then it comes back through the EQ section and then into the power amp. If I show up in a place and the sound guy's really struggling, or even like I'm on stage and there's just all this craziness going on, you know, because I obviously I like a bigger, you know what I mean, those open notes. There's a lot there behind the note. But if I show up in a room and things are it's just not working out, and we just need to really cut the fat and get simple, you know, I can go to my preamp, which I'm going to reach over right now, and I've got a master bypass which turns off all the post stuff. So all you're going to hear now is the bass going into the input gain, which is transformer coupled, so I'm saturating it with the transformer to kind of warm it up and emulate kind of like tube compression, but it's just a little cleaner. And then it's going through the compressor, and that's it. There's no post EQ, no boosting or anything like that. This is just the preamp on the bass, straight in. You know, so even now that I've bypassed kind of the tone shaping that I like for my personal sound, because I still have this preamp on here, I can still control what's being sent to the sound guy and still give him a good starting point and a nice thick sound. But now the tone's even got more, I keep wanting to say narrow, but more focused. So that's another great thing about having an active preamp when you get in those situations where you have to go direct, because that's just the way they're going to run the show, or the room is just so bad that the sound guy doesn't want to have to deal with all this extra, you know, mountain range stuff that might be going on. You still have a way to send a nice, strong signal. Obviously, it's not ideal because, you know, I'd rather have that stuff on and have a little little bit more body and sparkle. But I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So, and again, because this TCT is voiced the way I like, even without my extra little tweaks, it's like there's still those frequencies, that frequency content in there that makes my ear happy. So, wow, 25 minutes. Again, why I played at the beginning, but I feel like I've gotten into doing this more vlog style stuff instead of just being like, here's a 30-second video of me playing the bass, like it or not, here's how it sounds. Because when I was coming up, a lot of this stuff I had to learn happenstance because I was just before the social media generation where guys were getting on YouTube and like doing gear rundowns and talking about this kind of stuff. So for anybody that's interested, I don't mind sitting here and rambling and talking about why the TCT, that the fact that the TCT is not just a different model number, you know, it's purposely voiced differently and it sounds differently. So that's a big piece of the puzzle about maybe why certain jazz basses people struggle with. Well, it doesn't sound like it's got J pickups, but it doesn't sound like the jazz bass I'm after kind of thing. Because I just hope to help somebody. You know, that's why I always try to overly communicate and overly explain like this. My HRTCT 5.4 preamp is publicly available. Like the first video I ever did with that other bass back there, I was really cryptic about it. And then the video went so well and people were asking about it. Bartolini decided to bring it back, give it its part number. I did a second video with that bass because I changed the pickups in it. And I also wanted to let people know it's publicly available with the part number I just said, HRTCT 5.4 AP. You'll get I mean, you won't get these knobs, but you'll get exactly what's in this bass. But that's why I like to talk. So people now people that ask me, I can tell them. I try to announce it in the video. I try to put it in the description. But if that still doesn't make sense, I want people to feel free to comment. Go to my website. Directly email me. I don't, you know, I'll talk back to you. I don't mind. If I can help somebody to kind of like end the unicorn hunt, or to be happier, or give an easier time communicating on their instrument or playing live, and like that's what we're all here for. Like, this isn't, you know, I'm not threatened by, oh, you know, that's my preamp, people are going to steal my sound. You don't have my hands, you don't have my skin, you know. It's not because I'm so this or so that, but that's the beauty about humans making music, is that Marcus Miller could put his bass in my hands with his set. Like, he could have just played it and handed it to me, and I won't sound like him. That's just the beauty and the curse of humans playing an instrument. You know, it's about how you hit the string. It's about the texture of your skin, the oil of your skin. Like, I'm a firm believer in 90% or more of your tone. It's right here, which again is why Mike's approach and thought process behind his instruments makes so much sense to my head, because I was always taught that if you're not getting the sound you want, you start here, and then once you're hitting the string, getting the reaction you want, then that's when you can tone shape to then bring out the beauty of the instrument. You know, a lot of people get in this thing of buying and doing all these things to cover things up or force things to happen. And if that works for you, that's fine. Everybody has a different way of doing something. Mike's approach, though, is that he builds his instrument so that the player is in control of the dynamic of the instrument, and that makes sense, because my preamp doesn't get touched. Like, once it's been voiced for the instrument, once I've made the little tweaks that I want on the instrument, that's like the foundation that voices the amp to the way I want to respond to the instrument, and that never changes. Everything that happens on the gig is here and sometimes here, you know, which really the only thing that happens much at the gig is how much treble I'm using and the blend of the pickup. You know, everything else goes, you know, if I want a tighter sound, I'm playing, even with both pickups on, I'm playing over the bridge pickup. You know, it's a tighter sound. If I'm wanting to make the strings pop a little more, then I move more towards the neck of the instrument. You know, I didn't touch any knobs. Or if I'm really wanting to kind of like live where the whales live and get really kind of subsonic, you know, I'd roll the treble off to darken it, and then I actually play over the fretboard. Which really, you know, takes the attack of the bridge out of the equation, and you're relying just on the magnetics of the pickups, which now I'm really rambling because now we're talking about techniques, but just to make the point that Mike's thought process and the way he makes his instruments clicks with the way I approach playing my instrument, which is why, again, wanting the 70s J bass thing, but not being willing to sacrifice the MTD playability, and that's why this bass exists, and why I didn't just go buy brand X, Y, or Z with the person's name on it whose tone that I happen to like for that particular model of bass. So anyway, I think I'm done. I hope people that have stuck with me this long got to hear the instrument enough. If not, feel free to comment. I can do other videos, maybe short videos of just playing and keep my mouth shut. Hopefully the other info was helpful about like the Grendel, the Beast, what the differences are, where they exist in the timeline of MTD's instruments. And thanks for watching. I'm hoping to do another cover video. My original plan was to debut this on the internet in a cover video and then talk about it, but as time passed, I thought it was more important just to get the word out there. People can hear it, know the stuff that's in here in case what I hear is they like it and it's what they're after, that kind of thing. But I do hope to do, I need to get on the cover video train because I kind of did a few and then kind of fell off the bandwagon and just got busy. But I need to discipline myself and do that. So be on the lookout for that. Like and subscribe if you're willing to do that. That'd be great. Follow me on any of my social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, my website. You can link to all that from there. I'll also put my, my tags or my addresses down in the description too, so you can just search for that. And yeah, I hope this video helped at least somebody or interested somebody, or you got to at least hear how this thing sounds, because it sounds, it nailed the tone that I was after. It really did. So next time you're thinking about J basses, you might want to look up these three letters right here. MTD, Saratoga, Kingston, American, both awesome. If you want to do the Bartolini thing, you got the part number for this. These are the brights. So again, it all comes down to the tone palette you're after and the taste you want. But just know that they can do it. MTDs are phenomenal instruments and they can do it. So thanks for watching. Feel free to watch my other videos, and I hope to see you around.